We're Joseph and Kaylee, an international couple from the Czech Republic and Canada.
We bought a 2008 extended Sprinter van, packed up our flat in Prague, and moved out to my village.
Our plan is to convert our van into a tiny home on wheels and travel around Europe with our dogs Arthur and Athena. I have been looking forward to this for so long.
We are finally insulating our van.
So the reason we were so excited to insulate our van is because it is so hot in here during the day. The weather recently has been extremely hot or raining. Those are the only two options. But this morning we woke up and it's like 10 degrees out. So it's actually like kind of perfect since working in here is really hot normally. So it's nice that while we're insulating, we're not going to be dying of heat. So I would assume that most people think the main goal of insulating your home is to keep it warm in the winter. But for us, because we do intend to chase the sun, our main goal is actually just to keep it cool in the van so that our dogs are comfortable. And I guess so we're comfortable. But as always, our main priority is making sure that our dogs don't hate living in a van.
To insulate our van, we are using a combination of different products and methods in our van.
So we mentioned this in our video when we insulated the floor. Pretty much the biggest debate when building a van is insulation. So no matter what we do, it is never going to be right or wrong. So basically, Joseph did a bunch of research, we compromised on a few different solutions, and we're just doing what we think is going to work best for us. Everyone is going to come to different conclusions when it comes to insulation, so this is just what we decided on would work best for us with the products that we have available to us in Czech Republic and I guess the budget that we have.
As our main insulation, we chose K-Flex. It's 12mm thick, and I did the research, and this one is the most efficient and has the best properties from all the insulations.
So just like when I did the sound deadening, I'm going to use one of these abrasive pads to rough up the metal in order to make sure that the self-adhesive on the insulation sticks to the walls better. And hopefully by the time I'm done that, Joseph will be back and we can start installing the insulation. So the ceiling is a lot easier than other places because for the most part it's actually just all straight lines rather than cutting random curves and whatnot. So this is going to be easier. The only thing we had to do was cut little slits into it for all of the nuts and plugs from the roof rail. So now that we have lined it up, I'm going to start pulling back the adhesive. So just like with the sound deadening, you have to pull it back as you go. This is a job that, I mean, for smaller pieces, I'm sure it wouldn't be as hard with one person, but I genuinely don't know how we would have done the roof with only one person. This is not an easy task, let's just say that. So now we've kind of come up with a plan where Joseph peels it back and my job is to push it down. Later and about 20 degrees hotter. So the 30-degree weather is why we are not wearing clothing today, unfortunately. It's definitely much cooler in the van than it is outside, but also just because we still don't have our fan switched up, so we have no airflow. More or less, it's still an oven in here up until we have any sort of airflow.
Yesterday we worked around 15 hours on insulating the van with K-Flex, and we are pretty much done other than the back doors.
We're installing the K-Flex. We were making sure that we were leaving as small of gaps as possible, and then we went back in and we actually filled all of those gaps that did end up happening, mostly on like the rounded corners was where we were finding them. And then after that, I went in with this, it's aluminum tape, and I pretty much taped up anywhere that the metal touches K-Flex or just the edge of the K-Flex. So I just taped it all up to try to make sure that no water gets inside.
Today we are moving on our second type of insulation.
We decided to use rigid foam insulation in our more like high traffic areas. Because we are using such a thin material on our walls, we wanted to make sure that the places that we're going to be leaning or pushing on or just going to get hit more often are going to have something more solid behind them rather than just like an air gap, which we're doing pretty much everywhere else in the van. So for example, at the head of our bed, where I'm sure when we're sitting up in bed we'll be leaning on it, behind our couch, where of course again we'll be leaning on it, we're going to use this, as well as in the bottom half of our sliding door, because our dogs love to lean on doors. I don't know why. They see a door, they're just going to push their bodies as hard as possible against it. So those are the three areas that we were the most worried about leaving an air gap just for like the sturdiness of the walls.
We used rigid foam insulation for our floor with different method. You can check out that video if you want. In the walls we are using hardened polyester. It's 5 cm thick and it has aluminum covering on it, and it's really rigid, so it's gonna really be sturdy.
So it is yet another day later, and if you couldn't tell by the fact that we are now wearing clothes again, it got cold again.
It took me roughly 12 hours to fit all the insulation boards in a window wells. It was quite hard because I had to cut precisely to fit it so it's gonna stick very well. We are using this spray foam insulation. It's really good because it has like 90% of closed cells. It means that water can't really get to it, and we are gonna just spray foam the car and put the boards on it. We sprayed it in. It's really messy. It takes like 10 minutes roughly to dry, and then it's starting to becoming like really rigid, I would say. We waited 20 minutes and now we are gonna cut the excess foam with the X-Acto knife.
So before we started putting in the rigid insulation, I had actually finished insulating pretty much everything else, and now Joseph decided that we are in fact going to be using K-Flex behind the headliner. So I guess I'm not done insulating.
I'm spraying a wax in the ribs because it's gonna prevent the rust.
Very last thing I need to do for insulation is actually close off these ribs. It's sort of like creating a vapor barrier, but we're not doing that. We're only doing it on the top because of gravity. So basically, we're still going to let air flow inside of the ribs, but if there's going to be any moisture in there, we don't want it to be able to drip down onto our ceiling. So everywhere else in the van, we're going to leave it open because of gravity, so it would drip down the side of the wall, whereas here it would drip down onto our ceiling and possibly create mold or water damage. So that is why we're only doing the ceiling. So after about 45 hours, we have finally finished insulating the van. It was nice because I feel like I haven't got to work in the van very much recently because Joseph has mostly been up on the roof, so I haven't been able to do very much. So it's nice that I actually got to work on the van. Although I think it took a lot longer because I am a bit of a perfectionist. But I also learned a new, probably very useful skill in life of getting tape into really tiny little places. So I've got that one figured out for the future.
We chose not to put the insulation in the ribs so air can flow through, and if any moisture gets in, it can get out and there's not gonna be a rust. We chose not to do a vapor barrier because you would have to do like 100% perfect job, and if you don't, the water is gonna get behind the vapor barrier and it's gonna get trapped there and it's gonna rust. So we're just not gonna do it so the car can breathe. We chose to have an air gap between the insulation and the walls because it's gonna create an air barrier which is gonna work as a more of an insulation.
If you've ever seen when someone puts like plastic wrap on their windows in the winter to keep it warm, the reason they do that is because trapping the heat in between the plastic and the window is actually like one of the best forms of insulation. So when we trap air in between the exterior wall and the interior wall, it's going to create an even better insulation, hopefully.
Yes.
So now, after all of these many exhausting hours of work, I think we're going to be able to stay much cooler. I will say, this morning, it is a lot cooler in the van than it is outside, so very exciting. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to see our new videos.
If you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. Please share this video and give us a like.
To see more from us, check out our Instagram @Joseph and Kaylee, or catch up on some of our older videos.